Let's get on to our first email today. And our first email today comes to us from Tabitha Floor, who writes, "Hi, John. I know you're a big Pixar fan, absolutely. So I wanted to know what you thought about the announcement that the next Pixar film after Toy Story 4 was going to be Onward, about two elf brothers. What caught my attention was Chris Pratt and Tom Holland are in it. Do you think it has potential?" All right, thanks a lot for the email, Tabitha. And for those of you who don't know anything about it, here's kind of the synopsis they gave for Onward. This is the synopsis they gave for Onward here. It's Onward follows two teenage elf brothers who embark on an extraordinary quest to discover if there is still magic left in the world. It hits theaters on March 6th, 2020. And Greg, I heard them, the guys who's going to be directed, I believe it's being directed and produced by the same director and producer
Monsters University.
Of Monsters University, yes. And they were talking a little bit about how, I think one of them said they had a brother and their dad passed away when they were very young.
Yeah.
And it created, and that kind of gave a little bit of an emotional hook to me. Let me ask you this. You here, first of all, do you even like Pixar films that much? But then secondly,
I hate Pixar. I'm putting that on record right now.
Pixar.
Worst animation company. Yeah.
What did you think when you heard about this announcement? You hear names like Chris Pratt, Tom Holland, and others being attached. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, the biggest excitement factor for me actually was because I'm not a big Monsters University fan.
Right.
But I like when Pixar gets really personal. Like Coco was one of my favorite Pixar movies.
Good.
And the quote that you're talking about, he said the film was inspired by my own relationship with my brother. And I have a brother, and we had a dad who passed away in 2013.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And because of that, it actually brought us really much closer together. Now we both have YouTube channels. So because of that, like hearing just that description got me really intrigued because I like the tearjerker, heartfelt Pixar movies.
Right.
Personally, it's like I know like Monsters University is a lot more fun and goofy. And when you hear Chris Pratt and Tom Holland, you kind of imagine that, which I'm sure will have all that humor. But I'm more excited for the more personal side of it. And I think Chris Pratt and Tom Holland together, that just fits. That just works. Like even when you see like behind the scenes of Infinity War and you see them hanging out, you're like, they look like they'd be best friends in real life. Except they're saying they're playing brothers, and I know they're elves, but there's such a wide age difference between the two.
True.
Like
yeah.
There's like 20-something years between the guys, but they're saying they're both teenage brothers. So I'm like, are they playing around the same age? But I don't know. I guess that doesn't really matter at this point.
You made a really good observation. Like Pixar, they make very funny stuff.
True.
And great, you know, the adventure stuff of the Pixar films. They do a great job, but you're right. The thing that sets them apart from like a DreamWorks, who DreamWorks has put out some amazing stuff too, don't get me wrong, but they're able to go to that emotional level that a lot of movies don't.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at
I cried 3 times in Coco.
Well, yeah, not only that, like I was teary at the end too, but also like at the first 10 minutes of Up.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, like that. I remember seeing Up for the first time and watching that scene. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I've never had I've never had an animated film do what this movie is doing to me emotionally now.
Yes.
And if they can bring something like that to the table, then I'm all for it. Toy Story 4 is coming out now. And it's kind of interesting because we are now truly like, look, Incredibles 2 came out after John Lasseter left Pixar, but it was mostly made with John Lasseter when he was still there. Toy Story 4 is going to give us our first real look at Pixar, and then going into Onward of a post-John Lasseter Pixar. Are you expecting to see much of a difference, or do you think because they still have so much of the same team still there that we're not going to notice much?
I think there's going to be there's so much more than John Lasseter. It's easy to have a face for Pixar like John Lasseter, but there's always so many more people involved in a production company like this, especially for Pixar. And I think too that with one thing we were talking about like DreamWorks and Pixar and everything. One thing I love that Pixar does best with their casting is they don't just pick famous people.
Right.
You know, like Sherlock Gnomes came out this year, and that's like famous voices the movie, you know, but that's all there really is to it. And I think Pixar does a great job at knowing exactly who to pick and why to pick them, as opposed to, hey, they're famous, let's do them. So I think they're going to be on the right track. I doubt that just because John Lasseter's not there anymore that it's going to go downhill. I don't believe that for a second, actually. Do you? Is that your personal belief?
You know, I'm curious to find out. I'm because it's not. It just be interesting to see when you have somebody else now at the lead, if the DNA changes much. But I'm with you. I think you have so many of that team that are still there. And
there's like thousands of people.
Yeah, including a lot of the upper senior leadership are still consistent. I think we're probably going to see not a lot of change there.